Why, hello everyone, didn't see you there. I'm making a podcast, and I definitely saw you there. I lied to your faces. Not about the podcast part, though. I'm making a podcast. So I'm not sure if many of you remember that about a year ago, over a year ago now, I made a video, Time Gets Confusing When It Goes Intergalactic, and I said it was going to be part of a possible new series, Atticus Rants About Stuff Nobody Else Cares About. And I realized that that series would be way too much work and way too time-consuming to make in a video format. But suddenly I had the idea, what if I made it a podcast? So I've been working on putting together some ideas, and I'm working on putting together this podcast. Now, Atticus Rants About Stuff. Had to shorten it because it's too long for a podcast name and I ran out of characters. So now it's just Atticus Rants About Stuff. I'm hoping to release episodes monthly on the 15th. If I can keep that schedule up, we'll see. I'm probably going to record a ton over winter break so that I can schedule them out a ton in advance. So maybe I'll actually stick to a schedule for some type of content. If you want to listen, just keep watching this video, or you can listen on your favorite podcasting platforms. Now, at launch, it's probably only going to be available on Spotify because most platforms require you to have at least one podcast published before they'll actually add you. So I'm going to be applying to a ton of different podcast directories like Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts and all that stuff over the next few days. And I'll keep updating the links in the description whenever I get added to new directories. So for now, it's only going to be on YouTube and Spotify, but expect it to be on all your favorite platforms in the coming days. And without further ado, Without further ado, sit back, relax, and listen to the first episode of Atticus Rants About Stuff. Technically a different thing than Atticus Rants About Stuff Nobody Else Cares About.
What are you trying to hide? Why can't we look away from the goose? That's a lot of damage, in the words of the great Phil Swift. And I don't know if flex tape can fix that. Yellowha, what is up my homesicles? I am Atticus Cornett, goose expert and rant extraordinaire, and welcome to Atticus Rants About Stuff, the #1 podcast hosted by someone who has had Hot Pockets 4 meals in a row, willingly. Without further ado, let's get down to today's business. Geese, what the heck? So, the Canada goose, if you don't know much about it, is one of the most hateful creatures on the entire planet. I cannot think of any animal that's just filled with so much pure rage, and it's not that they can actually do that much damage, although I'll talk about where they can do a lot of damage later in the podcast, but it's just how angry they are all the time. I can't think of any other animal that's just constantly so angry. The Canada goose is so much hate in a small package. I mean, it's a bird. When you think of a bird, you usually think of an animal that's actually quite sweet and quite pretty and nice to listen to and look at. Not so for the Canada goose. So the Canada goose, it attacks people. It will straight up chase you down. And it does not care if you are an adult or a child. You can look it up. There are plenty, and I mean plenty of videos online of geese just absolutely terrorizing children and terrorizing neighborhoods and terrorizing parks. In fact, it's such a big issue that there's an entire game about it. If you haven't heard of it, Untitled Goose Game is an entire game about being a goose and wreaking havoc on the world around you. The tips that are given for avoiding a goose attack are kind of crazy. So the following I picked out from an article from the Inquirer from Cincinnati. I'm sorry, I'm bad at saying the word Inquirer. It's a hard word to say. And they cite the Ohio Department of Natural Resources as giving the following tips for intimidating a goose. So the first one is maintain direct eye contact while facing your body directly towards the attacking goose. And never turn your back or shoulders away from the hostile goose. So you have to just absolutely keep your eyes right on the goose. Because if you turn your back on a goose, let me tell you, they will strike you. They are so ready to strike you. There's very few other animals where you just have to have a old-fashioned stare down, and I respect it. The goose knows the value of an old-fashioned stare down, and in a way I totally respect that, because I am a fan of a staring contest. But it seems like kind of crazy that you just can't turn your back on a goose, because the second you do, they're gonna start charging you. So when you're trying to avoid a fight with a goose, you have to just do an old-fashioned stare down, and I find that incredible, and I find that really funny, but I also find that a little terrifying that they're saying that you can't take your eyes off the goose. They also say never close or squint your eyes or block your eyes with a purse or briefcase, and I mean, it's kind of like those statues from Doctor Who, and I don't remember the episode, but I have a very strong memory of these statues in Doctor Who, where if you take your eyes off of them, they are going to move and they are going to attack. Except for those really do exist, and that's just the Canada goose. And if the goose begins to charge, slowly back away while using your peripheral vision to watch for obstacles. So you're not even supposed to turn around when you are actively trying to run away from the goose. I don't know why they say don't turn your back on it. I suppose that when you turn your back, that's when they're really going to run at you. And I think that's because they can sense weakness. I think when you turn around, they go, now I can attack without them noticing. And you have to maintain, they also say to maintain a neutral demeanor towards the goose. Don't yell, don't hit, but also don't cower, hide, or run. It's just a stare down, because I think they sense your fear, and I think they know the second that you give the goose an indication that you fear them, you've given them the upper hand. I am confident that the Canada goose can sense your fear and is ready to attack. And if a goose flies up towards your face, then duck or move away at a 90-degree angle from the direction of flight, still facing the attacking goose. What are you trying to hide? Why can't we look away from the goose? Because the goose is going to do evil, evil things when you're not looking. They know the value of a good old-fashioned stare down, which at the same time I appreciate, but is also terrifying, because if you can't look away, their strategy is designed to have one of two outcomes. You turn around and they attack you while you're not looking and you're injured, or you're trying to run away while looking at them, and you fall over. They've designed an attack strategy that makes you likely to be the loser pretty much every time you approach the goose. And when it comes to avoiding having an attack from a goose, some people may think, oh, maybe if I start feeding these geese, I'm going to be able to prevent an attack because they'll become my friend. Not according to WikiHow. According to WikiHow, by feeding geese, instead of making them your friend, all you're doing is making them lose fear of humans, and you're making yourself a target. You're showing weakness. Again, I think geese can detect your weakness. WikiHow also echoes the sentiment of maintaining eye contact, and you can't let geese go unsupervised. And it claims that you should remain calm, because if you appear frightened or upset, the goose may think you are getting aggressive. No, I reiterate for the 5th time, they know you are weak. I think geese are smarter than we think they are, and they are plotting against us. And earlier I was saying how usually when you think of a bird, you think of a sweet, graceful creature. Geese are also classified as birds, but they are very weird when it comes to birds because they have a few traits that I just can't think of any other bird that has, and frankly, traits that I don't think any animal should have. So, if you don't know, geese can hiss. Like, geese can straight up make, like, a cat-like hissing sound. I can't think of any other bird that can make a hissing sound. It is not right for a bird to make a hissing sound. Not only can they make a hissing sound, but they also have teeth. Technically, they don't have teeth. Let me be clear. Birds, to be categorized as a bird, you can't have teeth. But if you've looked at a picture, in fact, I encourage you all, if you haven't seen the inside of a goose's mouth, you should look that up right now, because I am going to call these teeth. The things they have sticking out in their mouth. Now, technically, geese do not have teeth, because teeth are made of enamel, but the structures that are inside of a goose's mouth are made of cartilage, so it's not actually teeth, but it looks like teeth, and it's just teeth. I am going to disagree with the fact that it's made of cartilage, so it's not teeth. I know teeth when I see them. I am a self-professed expert on teeth. Those are teeth in their mouth. And I do not like that these birds have teeth. Not only do they have teeth in their mouth regularly, they have tongue teeth. The similar structures as to what are all around their mouth are on their tongue. They have sharp cartilage pieces on their tongue. There is no reason for any animal to have teeth on their tongue. It's not right. It's not natural. Geese? What the heck? I don't understand why geese have all of these weird features. And I think geese are, like, the embodiment of evil in a bird. I think they are on track. They are going to destroy humanity. So, because geese, they destroy and steal everything. So these numbers are sourced from an article by Global News Canada and the Manitoba Agricultural Services Corporation. And according to the Manitoba Agricultural Services Corporation, crop damage by Canada geese resulted in average annual compensation claims of more than $416,000 from 2015 to 2018. $416,000. Now, I don't know about you, but that sounds like a whole lot of damage. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't know anyone who makes $416,000 a year. That is an insane amount of damage, and it's just geese. It's just geese. They can also be a traffic hazard, too. From 2015 to 2018, an annual average of approximately, let me get this number very clear, 372,000, not 3,000, not 37,000, $372,528 in car crash claims in Manitoba that are directly attributed to Canada geese, according to Manitoba Public Insurance. And this is just in one area of Canada. This is not worldwide. This is not nationwide. This is one specific area of Canada. That's a lot of damage, in the words of the great Phil Swift. And I don't know if flex tape can fix that. Not only have geese caused crop damage and traffic problems and insurance claims, they have straight up taken down planes. So, one example is Canada geese were found to be the cause of the crash of US Airways Flight 1549 into the Hudson River. So, if you don't know what I'm talking about, this is the crash that the movie Sully was written about. in which the plane lost power to both engines, not just one, but both of the two engines of the plane, lost power after bird strikes that were right after taking off from the airport. The plane was forced to land on the Hudson River because it did not have sufficient power or altitude to return back to the airport or get to any other nearby runways. The plane was forced to land in the river. It was actually quite incredible. Fortunately, everyone survived this instance, and the NTSB, the National Transportation Safety Board, has described this as the most successful water ditching ever. And it's also been described as the miracle on the Hudson. But unfortunately, this is not always the case. Canada Geese have not only taken down civilian planes, but they have also taken down advanced spy planes. The Boeing E-3 Sentry is an airborne early warning and control aircraft that was produced from 1977 to 1992, and it is based on the Boeing 707. It is still in use today, and it will remain in service until it is replaced fully in 2027. It's a very advanced plane. It has radar, and it can even detect planes at a lower altitude and distinguish them from the ground. This is some very advanced technology. But unfortunately, in 1995, an incident occurred at the Elmendorf Air Force Base in Alaska that killed all people on board when an entire flock of geese obstructed the plane shortly after takeoff. It didn't even make it 2 miles from the airport before it crashed, and all 24 on board died. But I think that this is part of a strategy by the geese. I think geese are smart. I think geese are a lot smarter than we give them credit for. For example, think of when geese migrate. When geese migrate, they end up in a V formation. You can see the iconic flock of geese in formation flying overhead. When you can hear honking, and you look up and you see a V of birds. This is a smart decision on their part. The V is intentionally designed to conserve energy, so the person in the front, who is the strongest and currently the least tired, takes the lead point of the V, and by flying in front of all the other geese, he lowers the air resistance for them, and then the geese behind fly just slightly higher, and then it spreads out into a big V where they're optimizing their energy and they are minimizing air resistance. And this system is set up so that when geese get tired, they return to the back of the flock. And this allows them to travel vast distances while spending less energy and taking fewer breaks. And not only does it just save energy, but it also helps them keep track of one another and makes it easier for them to communicate, know where everyone is. They've got a really smart setup. So just their migration patterns, they've set up so that it's easier for them. That's a pretty smart move. They've also managed to adapt to living with humans pretty well. They've figured out that humans usually aren't a threat to them, which is why they can be so aggressive. They know that we're not a threat because we've shown them weakness too many times. And they've figured out where to go, where they can be least disturbed, and they've also figured out where to go and what to do to cause maximum havoc. Geese are pretty smart creatures. They've been described as some of the smartest birds out there. And I think they don't get enough credit for that. There's also a whole ton of geese. There are 7 million Canada geese as of 2020, according to the Canadian Wildlife Service. So we're being surrounded. They're building up their forces. Geese are smart, and they're getting ready. I think they are getting ready to attack. But what we really haven't answered is why are geese really just such hateful creatures? Where does all of this hate come from? Well, think about the main species of geese, the Canada goose. Where do those come from? Well, as the name implies, the Canada goose is from Canada. Now let's take what we know about the Canadians. So, the Canadian people, what do we know about them? Well, for one thing, they love maple syrup, but also, they are very nice people. And so that leads me to my conclusion, where I have two theories of where the rage of the Canada Goose comes from. My first theory is that Canadians upset the balance of nature. There's supposed to be so much rage and anger in an area, and Canadians are so nice that they upset the balance of the universe. So how do you compensate? Well, you make geese, and geese that are evil, rude, always angry creatures. And so the first possible reason for why geese are so angry and why they exist is because the Canadians just upset the balance of the universe, so there has to be a counterweight. Canadians are really nice, you have to balance that on the other side with Canada geese are really rude and evil. All things must be paired with an opposite, yin-yang, upset balance, boom, geese. But the second theory is that Canadians aren't really as nice as we think they are. Here's what happens. In a situation where a normal person would get angry, or where a normal person wouldn't be quite as nice as a Canadian, the Canadians are always nice. But what happens to that energy? It's not actually because the Canadians are nice, but it's because their negative energy goes directly to a goose. You can think of it kind of like a split two halves of the soul. The nice part is going to be in the Canadian, and they're going to be really nice to you. But for every time that a Canadian is extra nice, or that a Canadian doesn't get angry when any reasonable person would get angry, that anger, or the net negative of what it would be, what a normal person would have done. Well, I say normal like Canadians aren't normal, but what a less nice person would do, what a non-Canadian would do, the negative energy goes directly to a goose. There is going to be a goose for every single Canadian, and the negative energy from the Canadian, instead of having the Canadian be negative, energy goes straight to the goose. So you have the Canadian, who's all nice, and then you have the goose, who's all bad. And so those are my two contending theories for why the Canada Goose is so rude. So what do you guys think? Do you think that Canadians upset the balance of the universe, or do you think that negative energy goes straight into the goose? Or maybe you think that I'm just clinically insane, and that geese are just geese, and that is a fact of life, and they are an unstoppable force. Let me know what you guys think, or don't, because I'm not giving you any line of contact to me. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you tune back next time.